Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jill Dunn. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white female wearing a black blazer and a red dress. I have blonde hair. And I'm so thrilled to welcome you here to talk about Better Together, how arts organizations win new audiences by joining forces. You're going to get the highlights of Cincinnati in a way you've never heard before. And we're really going to try to talk about how we're not competing for audiences, and by working together in the same market, we can really produce some stronger results. Please be sure to use the app to submit your questions now. We're gonna have 10 minutes at the end to have a Q&A session. So if you haven't already, the app is very easy to use. You click on the first session that says Q&A, and then you can click on the comments, and then you can write your own questions there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you, and I hope you do that. Again, Cincinnati was chosen for this topic because our city is really defined by connection. It's a place where bridges aren't just physical, they're social, cultural, and creative. And here in Cincinnati, we have neighborhoods and backgrounds that find strength in collaboration. We have 2.3 million people in our region and a very vibrant arts community. We understand the power of working together, and that's helped us build one of the most connected and culturally rich communities in the nation. In this spotlight panel, we're hoping to give you a behind-the-scenes look at how collaborations are born in Cincinnati, the creative ideation process, and we're going to talk about aligning on shared goals. No matter the size of your institution or market, we really think that we can give you some good examples and leave you with some actionable ideas for building a more connected arts community and cultivate a greater number of cultural consumers. So first thing I want to do is pass it over to my panelists so you can learn more about them. Once again, in the app, you're going to be able to click on their name and you can read about all of us in the bio. So they're just going to give you a really quick introduction, and please also connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to talk to you there.
So, great. Hi, my name is Gina Vella. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white female with dark hair. I'm wearing pink and purple, including a fabulous sparkly pink manicure I got done yesterday that I'm loving. See me for more. I am a lifelong Cincinnatian, but I went to grad school here at NYU for a couple years at Steinhardt Performing Arts Administration. Yes, I heard a few people. Awesome. And I am currently the director of marketing at Cincinnati Shakespeare Company. I've been there for 15 years. We are a resident ensemble theater in Cincinnati doing Shakespeare and the classics. We have a free Shakespeare in the Park tour, and we have an education program. And just to anchor everybody, our operating budget is $4 million, just to give you an idea of size.
Well, I'm Kick Lee. I go by him, dude. I am a black male, of course, wearing black. I am the founder and executive director of the Cincinnati Music Accelerator, Cincinnati Native. We are a nonprofit that focuses on the advancement and development of music creatives. We book them out for various events. We have a mobile DJ Jeep. We have a stage trailer to pretty much help them book themselves for greater opportunities within our community. I'm a Full Sail graduate and alum as well, and again, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Ryan Strand, he, him, and I am a white male, dark hair, wearing a blue blazer and jeans, and then gray dad sneakers. I should say the last time that I was on a New York stage was about 10 years ago, and about 10 blocks north, I was an actor in a Broadway flop called Soul Doctor, so I'm hoping this goes better than that. Now, in my second career, I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Communications at ArtsWave. We are the first and largest United Arts Fund in the country, and if some of you were like, what is a United Arts Fund? Think United Way, but for the arts. So we raise about $13 million every year from about 25,000-ish donations, and then turn right around and give it out to over 150 arts organizations, projects, and artists in the Cincinnati MSA. So I'm up here kind of different than the other folks who work at producing organizations in that we don't actually produce anything. So I'm up here to give a different perspective on partnerships.
Awesome, thanks Ryan. And as I mentioned, I'm Jill Dunn. I'm leading the discussion not because I'm the queen of the Queen City, even though that's a title I'm striving for, but I do have 25 years of experience in marketing, PR, and communications. Starting when I was in college, I worked for 2 years with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, in their PR department. And then more recently, I spent 8 years at the Cincinnati Art Museum. I was Chief Communications Officer, and now I lead marketing and communications for Artworks. We're a $3.5 million organization, and we're really the leader in Cincinnati's outdoor public art program. We do murals and so much more. We're putting Cincinnati on the map because we see our city as a gallery. We have nearly 400 murals, and we work with thousands of artists and a group of young people through a development program where ages 14 through 24 are employed to create these murals.
And Artworks is not to be confused with Arts Wave.
One of the many, many things we struggle with
Been a thing.
is the fact that our names are so very, very
Yes.
similar. I will say Artworks had the name first, and
That's very true.
we are working on that. But I will say that I'm super proud. Cincinnati was voted the #1 city for street art in the 2024 USA Today 10 Best Readers poll. So that is quite a kudos to the effort of all of us making public art. And now that we've kind of given you some information on us, our background, we want to make sure you get a little background on Cincinnati.
I'll applaud that. Looks like that's something.
So welcome to the Cincinnati region. Not only are we an arts and cultural powerhouse, we were once known as the beer capital of the world. We have one of the largest Oktoberfests in the world as well. Our Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and Opera are among the oldest in the country. Our Cincinnati Shakespeare Company is one of the few U.S. theaters to complete Shakespeare's entire canon. Plus, you can catch free Shakespeare in our parks. Our parks are amazing, and they're also often ranked #1 nationwide. Now, sports fans, you know the Cincinnati Reds, America's first professional baseball team, and the Bengals, who made it to the Super Bowl in 2022, thanks to Joe Burrow, my boyfriend. We are also, he doesn't know that yet, but we are also one of 3 cities in the running to be the new home for the Sundance Film Festival. We won't find out for a few more years, but I think that says a lot about how far Cincinnati has come, especially in regards to arts and culture. The image behind us is from Blink, and that is the nation's largest light and art festival. It originated right in Cincinnati, and my organization, Artworks, was one of the founding partners that helped make it happen. Our murals come to life during this event. It actually brings millions of people to the Cincinnati region over the course of 4 days, and it is a case study in collaboration by itself. It actually just was held last weekend. I was there on Sunday night. With all this, Cincinnati brings a unique synergy of sports, arts, culture, community. It's a perfect setting for today's panel. And to start, I'd love to get a show of hands. So how many of you here today have been involved with a cross-organizational collaboration in the last year? Now, keep your hands up if you would say it was a successful collaboration. Okay, good. I'm seeing some hands staying up, but I do think we have some useful info on this topic to dig a little deeper.
Our job here is done.
You've already cracked the code. You can teach us a few things, but we've got some examples for you anyway. To start, let's just go real basic. Tell me in a few words, what does a successful collaboration look like to you? And we'll start with Gina.
Jill, in a few words, I think a successful collaboration looks like one that builds trust and radiates authenticity. Those are always my 2 goals in a collaboration. And specifically for arts marketers and the client climate that we're in now is helping each other regain our audience participation from pre-pandemic levels, gain or exceed that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a successful collaboration is literally when two groups can really get together to achieve a huge common goal to pretty much help enliven the communities that they're here to serve.
Yeah, mine is kind of cliche, but I'll explain it in a second. It's when the organizations align with mission and goals. And what I mean by mission is not what's on the 990. That's sort of an inward-facing mission. What I mean by mission is, what is your art form, what is your arts organization actually doing in the community? And when you know what an impact and effect you are actually having, then you can align with others who are having a similar impact or effect, even if it's outside of your genre.
I love that. And I'd like to add that in my purview, when I think of collaborations, I think of the expression sometimes 1 + 1 = 3. And the idea that sometimes when you bring two things together, the sum of those things are greater than just bringing together the two parts. I think that using that concept, we can kind of dig into some of the specific examples that have produced, again, more than either one of us could have produced individually. So now, Ryan, I'm going to start with you and ask if you can share a time when you balanced your organization's goals with a partner's needs to create a win-win partnership.
Yeah, so again, as I said earlier, ArtsWave kind of occupies a unique position in Cincinnati's arts ecosystem, but probably, a lot of folks out there may not have an organization like an ArtsWave in your town. But one of the things that we always try to bring to our partnerships is stability. So we are almost 100 years old, we have a very large endowment, and we have a lot of great relationships in the community through various workplaces, companies, arts organizations, so we can bring a level of stability that many times arts organizations don't have, because you're always trying to sell tickets or you're trying to get butts and seats or whatever, and so taking a risk isn't always the easiest thing to do. So an example of this is ArtsWave started a program called the Flow Pass. And Flow, the full name is Flow, an African American Arts Experience, had two goals. The first goal was to complement and augment the number of Black performed and Black centered arts experiences in the city. And then the other goal, and this is where the partnership really came in, the other goal was to build what we were calling a culturally curious audience. And so what we wanted to avoid was this thing where white people go to the white things and the Black people go to the Black things, and then we have these two separate tracks we're working on. So, and we all know that at arts organizations, many times it's tough. You think like, well, we need to get a diverse audience, so let's just do this Black show, right? And that doesn't really work to actually integrate and get a diverse audience. So what we tried to do is we then went to the arts organizations and said, hey, if you will take a risk with some of your programming, we will provide funding, we will guarantee a block of tickets that we will buy from you, and in return, we get, basically, you guys can produce a show that we could not produce on our own. So we sort of took a little bit of the risk away from audience development while still being able to have goals of creating this diverse audience. So, that type of thing, and there are many other examples of how we create that win-win, but for us, a lot of times it starts with bringing something to the table that we see an arts organization is struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, a successful win-win for us, I mean, it actually was a partnership between the two of us, Since He Shakes, was I had the great opportunity of composing hip-hop tracks, rap tracks for Midsummer Night's Dream.
That's right.
And it was great because it brought a different perspective and take. Something I didn't mention earlier is I actually compose music for advertisements, so I'm in the sync licensing space. So this was great because it was a form of something I had never done, and I'm nervous. I'm like, how do you even make something for this whole story? I'm freaking out, but it worked out, and we sat down, we went through the tracks, we went through the stems, we went through everything to really figure out where do certain parts come in, how do they come in, and how do they work together to make a cohesive production successful.
And this artistic collaboration lived on for many years because that Midsummer Night's Dream went into the parks, 40 different parks across the tri-state. It went into high schools for many years, so it had this exponential return artistically, but also able to get that out in the outreach to schools in the community. So it was really, really fun and really cool.
Awesome. Well, Kik, I want to dig a little deeper into the creative side. When we think about creative ideation, it can be a challenge when you're working on a collaboration. Can you talk through how you get through that process to ensure that both partners' visions are represented?
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, story time. A great opportunity that I never thought would happen for Cincinnati, but more so myself as well, is going to the Super Bowl. So like I said before, with our organization, we have these things, this infrastructure, like stage trailers as we call them, that allow us to get out into communities to create opportunity. But we were able to take one of our stage trailers to the Super Bowl to showcase the arts of Cincinnati in LA, which was insane to me. And yes, I drove that whole trip with some friends. I drove it. So the issue was we found out that when Super Bowl time comes around, that's the NFL's turf. You cannot tailgate on that exact day of the Super Bowl separately. So you got to do it the day before. We raised about $25,000 to help cover this trip in 4 days. Again,
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah,
We were freaking out.
Yeah.
But when we found out, hey, you got to tailgate on that Saturday, that ruined our plans. We were like, well, what do we do now? So the community, I made a Facebook post, the community rallied and said, do you know this guy named Bengal Jim? I'm like, who the heck is Bengal Jim? I'm really bad. Literally like, who the heck is Bengal Jim? Like, who has a name like that? He turned out to literally be a great influential individual in our community, for the team, for the city, and for just so many others. So we reached out to him to say, hey, you're doing a tailgate, we're doing a tailgate. We have stage and we have sound and we have lights, we have the stuff. And he looked and said, you got all that? It's like, yeah, we got all that. He was like, we got to collaborate. So we hopped on the phone, we got together, we talked it through, we figured out what is the common goal, what are we trying to achieve here? And that's to literally show that Cincinnati's got it, that we have been out here, we've been hustling, and we literally have got the fan base and the community to prove it. And it was a success. We had 2,000 people at our tailgate, and it was insane. I'm sure some of those folks in the room that were there for that can agree. It was a time.
That came together in less than 2 weeks, right?
Yeah,
I wouldn't have known.
4 days.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, so cool.
Amazing. Thank you, Kik. Gina, as a marketing professional, how do you collaborate effectively with other marketing departments?
Great question, Jill. So one of the things I look for when I'm working with other marketing departments is what's our common challenge and what are the things that we can do with each other, again, the 1 + 1 = 3. So a really great example was this year, we were planning for our season announcements. Who here plans for season announcements every year? Everyone raise their hand. It is the most important thing for me and for most marketers that we do each season. But the thing is, no one else really cares as much as we do about our season announcements. Because it's months, if not years, before people can buy tickets to the thing. It's not that immediate, so newspapers aren't covering it because it's so far away. And so our coverage had dwindled on our season announcement. And I use the term coverage to say newspapers, people posting online, radio, TV, all of those things just wasn't covered in town, even though it had been for many years. So our paper in town, our main one is called the Cincinnati Enquirer. And like other people, I'm sure, the local coverage in your paper has decreased over the years. We sort of kind of tease that Enquirer is really just like 2 people up there posting events and then like 1 guy on the Joe Burrow beat. Like that's all we got. There's more than that, but it's a small team. And so we're not getting the coverage that we wanted. So I reached out to a couple different organizations in town, Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, the Cincinnati Ballet, and the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. And we realized that we all had already planned to have our season announcements be the same week. It was sort of a little serendipitous. They all tended to be that first week in March. And we said, well, what if we come together and pitch this as a story to the Enquirer? We'll make it really easy for them. We're going to promise them the things that we're going to promise them. We're going to get you the information in the press releases, photos, whatever it is that you need by a certain date. We will collect that all. We will collaborate with each other to make your job even easier. And it was amazing. The paper was like, absolutely, thank you so much. We're so strapped for resources. This helps us tremendously. And it was the first time that we actually got a story on our season announcements in a few years. So it was wonderful that actually worked out. What was great about it, and really to your question about working with other marketing departments, is there was still ways for all of us to keep the autonomy in our operations, right? Everyone's marketing departments work a little bit different. Sometimes you have the photos by season announcements. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can talk about casting, sometimes you can't, all of those things. So while that might feel like an insurmountable challenge, we were able to make space for that in this. We said, well, can we all come together on a few common things that we know we can know by that particular date, and we can just make sure we're really transparent about who's gonna have pictures, who's gonna have whatever it is. So I say that because I sometimes think it seems so insurmountable and challenging to work with another department because they're so entrenched in what they do, like you are. But I think that there's ways that you guys can work together and kind of overcome that. So it was a great success. The paper loved it. It made it into the magazine. It made it into the news, TV, actual coverage for season announcements, which we hadn't really had since the pandemic. So that was a great example of getting multiple marketing departments all together for a really great common goal.
I love that. And you deserve major kudos because I know you were kind of spearheading and herding the cats, as it were, on that project. And I'm so glad it turned out so well.
Yeah.
And now I want to turn it over to Ryan. I want you to talk through how some partnerships, how do you seek them to align with Arts Wave's goals and missions? Even for me, it's hard to make sure I don't say the wrong ones.
It's going on for a long time. So, as I mentioned earlier, when we look for partnerships, we look to align those mission and goals, right? And as I said, not the inward mission, the community-facing mission. So at ArtsWave, our community-facing goals are in what we have sort of a strategic plan. We call it our blueprint. And this is how we make all of our decisions, from funding to how we're going to market things. And that is that we believe the arts put Cincinnati on the map. They deepen roots in our region. They bridge cultural divides, enliven neighborhoods, and they fuel creativity and learning. So obviously not every partnership is going to hit on all of those 5 things, but we've taken the time to actually define what each of those are. So we're able to look then at organizations or at potential partners that might align on one of those things, and it allows us to look in very kind of unexpected places. And so one thing that we did is we looked at our audience, or in our case, our donors. We did an actual report on this. It was in 2010. We did the first version of it. We called it the Ripple Report. And we found the most interesting finding to us was that about 80% of the people who gave to us didn't actually go or participate in the arts at all. And that was like floored us. We were like, what do you mean? Like, not everybody loves the arts that's giving to us. That doesn't make any sense. Why would they give to us? And it turned out that they actually were really into our community-facing goals. They were like, well, yeah, I don't go to the theater, but I really love that Play Us in the Park is there because it creates this vibrant city. And so we were like, okay, we think what we have in common with all of these folks is that we're trying to make a better city through all of those 5 different areas. So then, an example of that unexpected partnership is we're on an arts panel, and we've mentioned the Bengals and the Reds and everything, probably more than any other arts organizations.
Here, but yeah.
So Cincinnati is a very sports-crazy city, and if you are kind of involved in civic life, you're probably a sports fan, as well as going to the arts. So we were like, well, these are organizations, the Reds, that are trying to deepen roots in the region. They're trying to, they're trying to put Cincinnati on the map by going for the World Series, right? So, and the same thing with another partner we had, FC Cincinnati, which is our local MLS soccer team. So we approached both of them to say, hey, you have similar goals to us, and you have different needs. So we have donors. We need to provide those donors with benefits. Reds, you have a lot of empty seats because you have like a 50,000 seat stadium and 198,000 games every year. And so would you mind giving tickets? Maybe we'll pay, I think we pay them $2 a ticket or something like that so that there's some skin in the game. And so we are able to then provide that as a benefit to our donors. And the same with FC Cincinnati. They were a super hot ticket, still are a super hot ticket. They're sold out every game. So they can't give tickets away.
Their stadium is near our theater, so I love the parking challenge.
There's been some stuff, yeah. But they had a different thing. They didn't need to fill seats, but they were new, and so they wanted to show that they were being ingrained into the community. And what better way to do that than to partner with a 97-year-old organization that supports many of the most storied institutions in our city. So we were able to provide our donors with these behind-the-scenes experiences with FC. And so when you look sort of outside of your genre and look kind of in unexpected places, again, aligning with that community-facing mission, the partnerships that can pop up, I think, are really, kind of unique.
I love that. And I also, in thinking about partnerships from my artworks perspective, I try to think about what organizations are doing well in areas that we are struggling, whether they are, maybe they have more financially than we do, or maybe they have a better access to a certain audience than we do. Those types of partnerships can definitely provide some great results for both if you can make it work that way. But
that's
now,
a perfect example of y'all's partnership with the hip hop and the Shakespeare thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
those audiences, like stereotypically, wouldn't overlap, but then
That's right.
they did. So,
Exactly.
well, let's wind up our sleeves because it's going to get a little salty in here. Let's talk about how collaborations aren't always
We just made it
smooth.
sound so easy to collaborate.
I know.
Just do that.
Now we're
Yeah.
going to look at the dark side. Talk about some challenges that you've encountered and how do you handle things when they don't go as planned. So Kik, do you have any examples of this?
Sure, story time again. All right, you ready? You ready? Okay. So I was presented with another amazing opportunity earlier this year to work with the Cincinnati Art Museum, which, shout out to Cincinnati Art Museum, to help produce and curate an event called Art After Dark. This is something they do every month at the end of the month. It's bringing community together to bring better and larger exposure to the exhibits that are there for the community. And it's also kind of like a party too. But this one was very distinctive in its way because it was Art After Dark, the remix. You hear that remix part? This was an amazing event because it allowed us to really collaborate, but there was a lot of challenges. The big thing about it was we were bringing Talib Kweli. Anybody familiar with Talib Kweli? Cool. So he was the headlining act for this event, and we had worked all summer. This was beginning of the summer. We're working together collectively with the Cincinnati Art Museum that also goes by CAM to figure out how we're gonna make this thing work. And we were figuring it out. We were working through it. We were talking, we were meeting, we were emailing. It was just everything going all summer. And then time rolls around for the event to happen. Huge storms rolling in. And this is supposed to be outside hosting 4,000 people. What do? We're freaking out. We're trying to figure out, okay, how's this gonna work? How are we gonna do this thing? How do we just make it work? Because we got so many people who are anticipating this event. Because I mean, again, it's Talib Kweli we're headlining here. So we talked through it. We figured out a way to make it work because we communicated with each other. We went through different scenarios and we decided, let's just be smart about this. Let's just move it inside. And we moved it inside. And it was great. I mean, people showed up. I sat out front doing my part, greeting everybody. And there's like this big, nice hill that drives up. And I'm just looking like, these people are still coming up this hill. Like, like, why? What are we doing? But they really wanted to be a part of this. And it was great because, for us, it was great because we were still doing it. It was unfortunate for other groups around the city because the storm was so huge that they had to shut down. They were like, we can't host our event. But thankfully, the Art Museum had an indoor space. And I mean, we had about 1,400 people show up, and it was packed. It was a party. But again, because of the challenge, we found a way to communicate, collaborate, and find a solution to make this a successful event that got to the ultimate goal. And that's something, again, for the community to enjoy.
All right, well, that's great. You definitely see the glass is half full, and it turned out to be a good event. Gina, are you going to spill any tea on this subject about
Well, one
collaboration?
example I'll say is sometimes collaborations maybe come out of uncomfortable conversations or provocative questions that you might ask or push back on. One example of that is we were producing August Wilson's Fences, and the local paper said they weren't going to send anyone to cover it. There was going to be no coverage about this wonderful play. And we called ArtsWave because one of their goals, bridging cultural divides, we're trying to address that by doing a play like this. And they agreed. They said, we need to push back on the paper to say, if you want us to do these types of works, we need your support. We need people to know that they're going on. And it's not just about us trying to sell tickets. You know, as a city, we have decided we want to present this type of work, so we need your help. And so it was a little bit of a risk calling the CEO, having our CEO call. Everybody got kind of, a little nervous. But it worked out okay. I just don't think it was a perspective they had considered necessarily what it really would mean to put time and resources behind supporting the work, which they did believe in. So sometimes having those provocative conversations can be difficult, but can lead to really great collaborations.
Awesome. Awesome. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, we've had a lot of collaborations that haven't worked out. But I say that to sort of drive home the broader point, which is in Cincinnati, we've kind of come to this place where collaboration is the norm. And so when collaboration is the norm, it's sort of okay if one of them doesn't work out. I mean, I can think of one that Gina and Jill have both been involved with, and I know their true thoughts on it. But everybody always is talking about, well, maybe we should have some sort of cross-organizational communication channel. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like, we could get everyone talking, and like, yes, objectively, that would be amazing. I mean, and we have not found a way to do that after many tries.
Slack failed.
Yeah, we had Slack.
Forums,
it did not.
Emails failed.
Facebook groups kind of worked, and we're kind of going back to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We even had, interestingly, another collaboration, but we did a hackathon weekend with a tech startup incubator in town. And we were like, well, if you can solve other problems, you can probably solve arts problems. So we actually crowdsourced problems from the arts organizations, and we're like, hey, hackers, can you like develop a program? And none of those panned out. And I mean, it was really fun, but none of them panned out. And the thing that came out of that was, again, this cross-organizational communication channel that we really pushed, and everyone was like, this isn't happening. So, and we'll come back to this, I think, in a later question, but what we have found is that just good old-fashioned phone calls and relationship meetings and things like that are actually kind of the way to go. But we won't stop trying, because collaboration is the norm. So
I'm not giving up either. Maybe a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group. I might even be willing to volunteer to help manage it.
There you go.
Maybe.
Don't
hold me to
you
that.
heard it here.
It's been a couple years. We should try it again.
We should try it.
Yep.
Okay, so, and I don't know if you do that in other cities, but we'd love to hear, put it in the chat
we're open to
or the
ideas.
Q&A and let us know how they're working. Now, another question is about trust and communications. They're so essential in any type of partnership. So how do you maintain these elements? Gina, why don't we start with you on this?
Yeah, I would say I would love for you guys to take this away from this session is share your stuff first. Share your stuff first. You can get somebody to trust you and want to collaborate with you if you lead with transparency. And I know it's so hard. I know that so much of what we do in the arts is shrouded in secrets, or did they get the part, what's the fun, all the things. There is still a place for us to be able to share our thoughts, things that we're doing, things that might feel private. It only helps build trust with the people that you're trying to work with. So if you can think about when you maybe would email someone to say, like, how's your show selling at Halloween? This is a question I just asked someone recently. And then I immediately said, here's how ours is going. I'm going to take a risk and tell you a thing. And you might say, I can't tell you, or I can't share that, whatever, and I've risked that. But 9 times out of 10, the person will feel the trust that you trusted in them. They will share that information with you. So share your stuff first.
That was so helpful for me. I tried to benchmark one of our biggest fundraiser of the year is like a gala, but it's more informal. And I was like, well, we have to get some numbers, see how other people are doing, see if anyone else is trying anything that's working. And so I was like, here are our numbers from last year. Emailed out a few different other similar-ish size organizations. And it worked. I think everyone I reached out to eventually gave me some type of response that helped us kind of benchmark and see what we wanted to do with our big fundraising event.
And the other thing I just shared with Jill was our press list. To me, that was such one that's like, we put hours into building these. I'm sure, who here has a press list that you spent hours on, right? Everyone. Can you imagine if you could just share that with the other people in your city? Because I can share with her the contact. What I can't share is maybe the long relationship that I've built with that press outlet. That's the other things that might feel more proprietary, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to share things like that, I think.
Yeah. Every organization has their own limits of what they're willing to share, but I definitely appreciate, and I shared right back to you, and I think it's great to keep that going. So, Kik, do you have any examples of this trust and communications in partnerships?
I mean, for examples for me is we had a big opportunity that came across the accelerator. Anybody familiar with Red Bull Flutog? Oh. Yeah. So we had that happen last year, and Red Bull, who's also a national partner of ours, came to us and said, "Hey, we're coming to your city. We're doing this thing, and we need DJs, a lot of them." And in myself, I was freaking out because one thing I like to communicate to people is, one, make sure you communicate, of course, but make sure you trust yourself and communicate with yourself. You know, we're so focused on trying to make sure we appease the partners and working with them, but you got to make sure you take care of yourself first. And in that, we were able to execute things so well with them that, again, they're coming back to Cincinnati next year. Don't kill me, Red Bull, for saying it, but I'm saying it. They're coming back next year, and that's huge. But because of me trusting in myself, my team, and the musicians and the artists, the DJs themselves, we're able to literally work together.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we have an interesting thing that we run at ArtsWave to help build trusted communication that actually came out of an organic thing that happened and then it was institutionalized. I mentioned earlier that we've tried all these cross-organizational things that have not worked and tried, various solutions, and that what ends up actually working is just building relationships. Well, that's easier said than done, right? Like, I can't just walk up to someone and have a relationship immediately, because there has to be a venue for that to happen in. So back in the 70s, there was this guy, his name was Bob Allen. He was not in the arts, he was an employee of Cincinnati Bell, which is our local telecommunications company. And somehow he met a couple arts marketers and really enjoyed talking to them because we're all interesting people, right? And so he just started having lunch with them every once in a while. And then that arts marketer would say to another arts marketer, hey, you should come have lunch with Bob. It's really fun. We just talk about stuff. And so after a while, they became kind of big. And when he passed away about 25 years ago, he actually left a small endowment to ArtsWave to continue these lunches in perpetuity. And so we get together every couple of months, arts marketers, with not really much of an agenda. Sometimes there's an agenda, but most of the time, it's literally just to sit down, have lunch together, and talk about what we're doing. One of the things we do, and Gina always talks about loving this part, that we do this thing called the round robin, and it's the simplest thing ever. We literally go around the room and we say what's upcoming at our organizations.
And it's so great because you might hear what somebody's doing, or they might say, and we're still looking for a space, or does anyone have chairs that we need? And you can actually say it out and everyone could hear. Yeah. And I guess, yes, you could try to text people, email people, just being in the same room.
And that's done. And it's so great for if you're new in town. We've all been the new person in town, and if you can just go to this place where all of a sudden you have access to people in a relaxed setting, I think there's something very human, and someone was saying it earlier about breaking bread with people. Sharing a meal is something that's intrinsic to the human experience that is different than having a business meeting at 2 p.m., right? A meeting over lunch breaks down barriers and lets people connect. So, I realize that not everybody, again, as I'm up here providing this different perspective, not everybody has a bunch of money to just spend on a bunch of lunches, but you do have people that or maybe you have an extra space and you can say, hey, why don't we just get some people together and bring your own lunch, and it's free. It's just, starting these little steps that can start to build relationships with new and older folks.
I love that. In fact, that is one of my favorite things about being in the arts in Cincinnati. I had a small foray away from the arts after my 8 years at the art museum. But when I
got her back, don't we?
When I did come back to the arts, and when I had my first Bob Allen luncheon after I returned to an arts organization, it was the best feeling to be welcomed back with open arms. I absolutely knew I had made the right choice to come back.
Just think how cool it could be to do that in your planned giving. I just think that's such a cool thing that he did. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So love that.
Yeah.
Okay, we were going to have one more quick question before we get to our audience Q&A. I want to hear, let's start with Gina. Talk to me about how you effectively pitch collaborations to leaders within arts organizations and how you handle it when you have a challenging collaboration that isn't an easy fit.
So sometimes you might be handed a collaboration that your artistic team is super excited about, and you're sitting there as the marketer going, okay, how can I talk about this? So the word that I keep coming back to in that answer is authenticity. What is the way that I can tell this story authentically? And it works both ways. If I want to do a collaboration, I can share this with my leadership by focusing on the authenticity. So the example that I give is called the ham manicure. So the Ham Manicure, this is really what I said, is a nail polish company that I love. Around Thanksgiving came out with a collaboration, a partnership. It was Manny Me and Honey Baked Ham. And this is real. I will show anyone the graphic if they're interested. And they did colors of ham, so it was like reds and pinks. Okay, but the worst part was there was a picture of a glistening ham, and they were selling their honey sugar scrub, like if you were to touch the ham, like how that might feel on your hands, the whole thing. So when I write a book eventually, the name of the chapter will be The Ham Manicure, and it'll be about collaborations that aren't natural, that you would necessarily put together. And so I said, I don't know how that came about. Maybe somebody higher up at the manicure company's buddies with Honey Baked Ham, and they're like, we should collaborate. So in the Ham Manicure, if you've been given a ham manicure, trying to find some way to make an authentic connection on those things. God bless them. They did their best. They got the colors going. They had the picture of the ham. They had the sugar scrub. And I actually, just this week, Olive and June came out with a collaboration with Domino's Pizza. Did anyone see that? And so we're like, oh, it's a pizza manicure. But that one was even more interesting because they were saying, Domino's has that emergency pizza. You get a free pizza if the night fell apart and you need dinner really quickly. They've put that with a manicure kit. If you break your nail and you need to quickly fix your nails, you could get this pizza-themed manicure. So sometimes you might have a ham manicure. If you can figure out a way to talk about it authentically, that's how you can win on that collaboration.
And stunningly, I want to build upon that because in Cincinnati, it was recently revealed that Skyline Chili, which they produce this, it's like a meat gravy that's specific to Cincinnati. It's quite delicious, has some cinnamon flavor in it, but it's a very savory thing.
There's no cinnamon actually.
There's got to be cinnamon. There's got to be cinnamon in it. But they are collaborating with Grater's Ice Cream, and together they are doing it was kind of leaked to the public that they were doing a Skyline flavored Grater's ice cream. And you would be shocked at the press that it has gotten in Cincinnati.
So authentically Cincinnati.
Authentic, yeah.
Like it is so, that's why it
Well, and you talk about
disgusting.
like community-facing goals, like an ice cream company and the hot dog making company that has meat gravy doesn't have anything alike. They don't have anything alike. However, what they do have in common, and this is again like what we look for in partnerships, right? Like the people who like both of those things are so into Cincinnati. Because if you're not into Cincinnati, you probably don't like Skyline. It's weird and whatever. But if you love Cincinnati, you're like, I love Skyline. And so it'd be like their audience is actually one and the same. So
I will absolutely try it. It sounds disgusting.
Oh, it sounds awful.
But I will try
good for them.
But I'm going to try it.
I will try
honestly.
it.
My
There are
response
two.
is
I love Skyline and I love Graders, so that
Yeah.
is something I will not forget. Any chance you want to close this out with any, advice to the audience to help build successful partnerships, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go back to kind of what I've been saying the whole time, which is when you have taken the time to articulate the community-facing mission, and then when you, as arts marketers, which I'm sure you all do, you know your audience, you know the types of things that your audience does when they leave your doors. And so if you know that, you can figure out who to partnership. And also, kind of a practical thing is going back to our partnership with the sports teams. Sometimes if you're wary about like calling up another arts organization, like calling a non-arts organizations to do a partnership might feel easier, so that's a great way to start.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just trust and believe in who you are, trust and believe in your superpower. You can achieve so much when you literally believe within yourself and in the objective of the final goal that you're working towards.
And my final advice would be to stop being precious. Stop being so precious about all those things that you've always done it this way and it can't change. Be vulnerable, try new things out. That is the one thing that I really would love for the future arts administrators to do, especially inside of marketing. I just think being vulnerable, building trust, having a laugh, clearly we enjoy humor here, finds a way to break down those barriers. Just stop being so precious about everything. That's my advice.
Well, and Gina says this all the time, so I'm stealing this from you, but it's fully Gina, that she says, when it comes to partnerships and not being precious with your stuff, like yes, a little bit we're competing with each other, but mostly we're competing with the couch. I think it was even said earlier that we as an arts community are competing with the couch. We're not necessarily competing with each other. And what is the stat on?
Yeah, there's been a couple stats today. The one that Priya shared about 50% go to the arts. You mentioned that only 20% of ArtsWave donors go to the arts. I've heard 5% of active people in Cincinnati go to the arts. So thank you for reminding me of this. We're really just, if we're just trying to fight over those scraps, we're not really getting anywhere.
Right.
Like the answer is 100% of people go to the arts. So there is a benefit to you if they are not necessarily going to your venue, but they go to some venue. So just trying to keep that goal in mind. So maybe they didn't buy a ticket to my show, but they went to the ballet. And then when ArtsWave asked for funding, they had a great time at that show. So they decided to donate. It's just sort of this flywheel. And I know it does you have to take your mind off of that final bottom line ticket sales goal and try to just look ahead a little bit in some of the things that you're doing, because we really aren't in competition with each other as much as I think that we think we are.
I think it would be correct to say, in the club, we all fam.
Would it be correct to
I had to explain it.
She just went rogue.
I did. That's not I just want to mix things up. On the maybe a little more traditional side, there is the quote that I've heard both in business settings and outside of business, that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So hopefully, we will all keep continuing to embrace the idea of collaboration, and we'll be able to create more successes going forward. So hopefully, we're going to open it up to the questions that you all have submitted to us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much to all of you for such an energizing conversation. I can't stop smiling, and I'm going to think about hand manicures for a very long time.
Our goal is to make everybody move to Cincinnati. That's the goal.
Good job. My name's Anna Scheider. I am a senior analyst at Capacity Interactive. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white woman with blonde hair wearing a gray top and black pants. We have a couple great questions, so I think I will just ask them, and if you feel inspired to answer, go right ahead. As many of you can answer as you would like. So for the first question, can you speak to the successes or challenges you've had around tracking or measuring the impact of these collaborations? And this question, a little additional context, is thinking specifically about attracting new audiences.
We debated this quite a bit to say is my mic still working? Yes. We debated this quite a bit about what are the stats, and it's very hard. I mean, that's the answer, right? It's impossible to really know dollar for dollar number of people that were coming in. You can look at your trends on overall, did a particular show with a collaboration have a higher new to file group of people? But I think the point that we're trying to make is that it's almost needing, and I'm sorry to say this at Capacity Interactive, look outside of the data on these ones. Building trust, authenticity. You might not have the numbers at first, but that doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't a worthwhile project to try, and trust that the numbers will follow. Can you add to that?
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything to add. I will say that we had, bringing back up our FlowPass subscription series, I can just speak to, we did have some numbers on that. Like we had a certain number of tickets that we bought from each organization, and so we needed to fill those seats. So that was a pretty specific way of gauging whether we were successful or not. So we were able to put some numbers on, how much did we spend, what did we make, all that stuff. But in general, some of it has to be that other bottom line that your organizations are using. So.
Yeah, and for artworks, every mural that we do is a partnership. So there's never a time when, very rarely is there a time when we're going to create a mural on our own. We're always doing it in conjunction with either a corporate partner, a private partner, like an individual, or a nonprofit, or government organization, or community itself. So each of our murals is done in partnership, and we can track overall numbers of people who attend the dedication, for example, the number of hours that we provide in professional development to those young people that I mentioned, ages 14 through 24 that we're employing, how many artists we've employed, and how much we've paid to artists and these young people in high school and post-high school. But each project is so different.
Yeah.
Getting those numbers and being able to compare them and even share them with an outside organization that is more ticket driven. I think it just varies by each organization, and by bringing in a different partner, you're adding to the complexity, which makes it even more hard to calculate those numbers.
Yeah, being creative on how you're defining the goals, I think
Right,
beforehand
that's
is
what it
helpful
needs
too,
to
because it's not always going to be ticket sales.
Right.
Thank you. How do you get buy-in for leadership to move forward with these collaborations?
Well, Kik, as an executive leader, what are some
Yeah.
things that you'd like to hear?
I mean, really, when it comes to my team, I always like to sit down with them and talk things through from a pilot perspective. You know, the Music Accelerator started out as a pilot idea. We weren't a nonprofit or anything. I just applied for a community grant and $10,000 and said, let's try this thing. So I always try to really hear my team out, understand what they're really trying to achieve, because in their brains, like all of us, we're thinking big vision. That's great. But come on, let's scale it down a little bit. Let's talk it through. What are you trying to achieve here? And let's aim for those things first, prove success of concept. And then once we get that concept proven successful, then we can work for the higher goal to then get to the bigger vision.
Yeah, you hear people say small experiment with radical intent. So sometimes it is just showing a little bit, and you gotta remember the small part, because that's where it goes off the rails.
That's where it can go
Hard to
real
do sometimes.
bad.
So keep it small. And that helps leadership to see what potential effects we could have, but defining the goal before we start.
Right.
That's the key, making sure that they understand what it is that you think you can achieve, bringing them along with that from the beginning. I have found it's been really successful.
Yeah, and I feel like a broken record on the community-facing goals. If you've articulated those goals as an organization, and again, Arts Waves is like putting Cincinnati on the map, deepening roots in the region. If you have these goals that everybody in your organization is working toward, and you as arts marketers know your audience, and so you know the type of person who walks in the door and the other types of things they like to do or want to go to and see, it's going to be a lot easier to talk to the CEO, whoever it is, about, well, this type of collaboration is going to attract this type of person, and this organization and us align on that goal. And so it's having those articulated goals before you start.
Thank you. How do different teams at your organization support or participate in partnerships beyond marketing? Are there shared fundraising goals or media or content outputs?
I'd love to answer to this one. We at Cincy Shakes have what we call our DevComs team, and it's a mix of marketing and development people. We meet weekly, which might feel like a lot, but what we have found, and it sort of started in the pandemic because we had a little extra time and less people working there, unfortunately at the time, that we sort of built this group team together. And so we are very involved in what's going on in marketing and development. We have another presentation that we share about that as our, from the development director and the marketing myself, because we're all working towards the same goal. We all have the same patron. So that's really where it began. We used Spectrix, and the development side hadn't really taken advantage of all the features that it had. And I said, well, that's the thing that I know really well. How can I help you guys on this? So sort of the superpowers of each department, you know, sometimes marketers, we move fast, we want to get it done, we're doing these things, and development believes in small moves, taking time, hearing everyone's feelings. And in the end of the day, we could all use a little of each other, right? We could probably slow down as marketers, they could probably speed up as development. So it really is just recognizing those superpowers in each other and how you can amplify those.
Yeah. I'll say one way we've done some of that collaboration internally within ArtsWave is our main mission is to fund the arts, basically. Like our tagline is funding arts, fueling community. And so that's basically what we do. We do a lot of things, but like the bulk of what we do is we give money away to organizations to have the impact that we want them to have. And so getting stories of that impact is the only way that we can actually do our marketing, because we don't do anything. Like, we support the people who are doing the things, and we have to sell this idea that giving to stability and boring stuff like that is cool. And so, what we did is we talked to our team that gives out the money, and we were like, can you guys work with us to figure out what we need to tell that story? Because we don't have contact with the people who are getting the money. I mean, we do through Bob Allen lunches and stuff, but like, we are not with them on the ground. So we're not getting the photos of the kids being affected by the music program and all that stuff. So we can kind of get content through other teams, and that only happens through good communication and making sure that we do that beforehand. So.
Well, Ryan, I promise you, if you keep giving our organization money,
Yeah.
I'll keep telling stories for you and
There you
showing these. I'll grab great pictures of teenagers painting murals.
Yeah, we have lots of
So I'm happy to help with that.
I think we have time for one more quick question. Do you have any tips for navigating collaborations where one party might have less resources than another? That's a good question.
I can speak to that. So we have a lot of infrastructure. We have, like I said, we have sound. We have, we've got a lot of marketing, like physical infrastructure that JCPenney's closed, and they donated a bunch of the fixtures and stuff to us for events.
Yeah.
And what we do is when we talk to our partners, we try to figure out what are your needs and what are you struggling with. And let's go in our own inventory and figure out, okay, hey, you can borrow this, you can use this, you can rent this to help them better succeed at what they're trying to achieve. Because, I didn't mention it earlier, we're only a $300,000 operating organization. We're a smaller guy, but we make the most impact not through those dollars, but the infrastructure that we carry and collect. Because again, there are different organizations we work with. We're music. Everybody wants music involved in what they're doing, especially their fundraisers. So again, that's where we come in to really be that kind of supporting organization to those other orgs and groups.
Yeah, there's something that a bigger organization can learn and grow from a smaller, and a smaller can learn and grow from a bigger. And if a bigger organization doesn't see that, they have a problem. So really, I think that it's sort of size doesn't necessarily matter if everyone's aligned on the same goals. And again, sharing your stuff first and not being precious about those things, then it sort of negates what the size of the organization is if we're all aligned on those things together.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. I think you have inspired many of us to come visit Cincinnati. So
Yes.
maybe it won't be long till we see you again. Thank you.